Welcome to today's lecture. Today we are going to look at Introduction to Simulink in MATLAB. And the objective of today's tutorial is basically to introduce you to the Simulink interface. So you would find how to start a Simulink project, how to find the various blocks you need to connect together, and then also how to save a Simulink project and how to run a Simulink project. So when we talk about Simulink, Simulink is basically simulation and link, and it is developed by MathWorks as an add-on to MATLAB. It is a graphical programming language which offers modeling, simulation, and analyzing of multi-domain dynamic systems under a graphical user interface environment. Within Simulink, you would find several toolboxes. You realize that you can use Simulink to perform a lot of electrical system simulations, as well as communication system simulations and control system simulations. Simulink has a very tight integration with MATLAB. That is why Simulink would normally be found within the MATLAB environment. And Simulink has a rich set of blocks or toolboxes, which allows for system design easily. So to start Simulink, you would first of all create or open your MATLAB, and then you would have your MATLAB window like this. Now, within MATLAB, there are several ways to start Simulink. The first step of opening Simulink, or one way of starting Simulink, is to use or type Simulink in the command window. So you have Simulink in the command window and then you enter. And that would give you a window like this, where you see new. And then when you look at examples, there are several models that have been designed already. You can take your time to go through these modules and then learn something new. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we will create a blank model. So we click on this and then we create the blank model. The other way of opening Simulink is to click on the Simulink icon in the menu, the home menu. So you click on Simulink and this gives you that, and then you create blank module or model. Now, this model is an untitled model. So how do we save a Simulink file? It's advisable you save it as you start. So you can just go to File and then Save. Now, one good practice is to create a folder in your documents or anywhere in your computer and name it MATLAB. I have done mine in my documents and I have named it MATLAB. So MATLAB, I open that and then I give it a name. Let's say Linus. And then I save. So you'd see my project or my design has now been given a name. Now, how do we look for the various toolboxes or blocks to use in Simulink? With that as well, there are two ways of going about it. The first one is to use the library browser. When you click on that, this gives you the Simulink library browser. And then you would see on the left-hand side the various toolboxes and the various blocks within those toolboxes. So for instance, under Simulink, when I select sources, I have these sources: band limited, white noise, chirp signal, clock, constant, counter, free running, all the way to waveform generator. I have sine wave here, signal generator, etc. Assuming I want to design a simple integrator circuit, which would integrate a sine wave for me, it means I would need a sine wave. So let's look at how to place our blocks in the design window. One option is to select the block and then drag the block into the window and release. And then you have that. Now, we have used that to bring the sine wave. Now, let's use the other method to get the other blocks. So the other method would be to double click the window. And then I am looking for an integrator now. So I type integrator. And you see there is an integrator there. So I enter and my integrator is placed in my window. The next thing I need is a mux to combine or route the sine wave as well as the integrated sine wave. So I double click again and then I type mux, which is a multiplexer. Then I enter. How do I display my signal? I would need a scope. So double click and then I type a scope. And then Simulink sync scope appears. So now I have been able to draw this. The next thing I would want to do is to connect the various blocks together to create my waveform. So I align them nicely, and then here with my sine wave, I just select the connection and then drag it into the multiplexer. The output of the integrator is also connected to the multiplexer. And then because I am integrating the sine wave, I connect it also to the sine wave. And then finally, my output is sent to the scope or the oscilloscope. So that is how you create a basic Simulink system. So now, this is a sine wave. How do I get to see the attributes of this sine wave? That will be to double click on the block, and then I can see the sine wave. There is some write-up or theory on how this sine wave is done, and then you would get the various parameters in terms of amplitude, frequency, etc. Similarly, for the integrator, the parameters are shown here. You can modify them as you wish, and then this is our oscilloscope or scope. Now that I have done this, I would want to simulate and see what my output would be. Now, bear in mind that the sine wave has an amplitude of 1. So when we simulate this eventually with the play button, we can double click on the scope, and this is the output we get. So you realize that you have the sine wave, which is the yellow one, with the amplitude of 1, and this has been integrated to another sine wave which has an amplitude of 2. Now you can play with the axis in here by going to simulation and then changing the parameters. The configurations for the view and layout can also be changed from here. You can also find a way to print this graph if you need to print it, if you want to preview it, etc. So basically, this is just a brief introduction to Simulink so that you would be able to create Simulink projects. So now we have looked at how to start Simulink. We have also looked at where to find the various libraries, and then we have looked at how to identify the various blocks, how to connect them, and how to simulate them. So as you are familiar with this now, take your time and go through the various menus and explore them. That is the only way you can master the usage of Simulink. Thank you for your time and see you next time.